Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. Hello.
Greetings. Happy Global African Women's Day. We are making it work. Women all over the world, honey. Yes. And our amazing heroes. I see you out there, Daryl. Yes, I'm excited. It looks like the video is rolling on Facebook Live as well as YouTube Live. Is that the case?
Pardon?
Greetings. Is that Miss Mandela I see in our midst?
Yes, it is.
Oh, what pleasure. To what do we owe the honor? I guess we have to thank Miss Ferdozi Bulbia. Memory is a weapon. How could we ever forget the efforts of your grandmother, strong like a rock?
Greetings, ladies. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yes.
can hear you.
Oh, great.
My ancestors actually experienced it, and their ancestors were taken to experience that. It was something. Well, children, where there is so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. Twinks, the Negroes of the South, and the women of the North all talking about rights. The white man is gonna be in a fix pretty
So,
soon.
Angela,
But what's all this talking about?
We can hear you.
You see that man fix pretty soon. Well, children,
Sahle-Work Zewde has been appointed as Ethiopia's first female president. Lawmakers unanimously elected her following the unexpected resignation of Mulatu Teshome.
coming to the table with our resources. First resource being the human resources, women all over the world that are letting her know that now that she has the platform, a platform in her country, that the work is now about to begin.
The U.S. Consul General John Bray has urged Nigerians to take the firm stand against impunity, stigma, and authoritative silence, which fuel violence against women and girls in the country.
There are many types of violent situations that happen against our women and girls. Some of them include human and sex trafficking, kidnapping, rape, molestation.
Angela, I
We
can't
have
hear you at
domestic abuse,
all.
and it's not just physical, and many times it's mental, verbal, and emotional abuse that is happening in the home. There's also financial abuse and social mobility abuse against women in society.
Daryl, I think you need to put your Skype on mute.
Greetings. This is Angela Sales. I am the chairwoman for this year's CSW
Well, can you hear my
60th
background noise?
collaboration between the Global
Yes.
African SHEROES Union
Sorry.
and ECOWAS Women Organization. The SHEROES Sisterhood is important because this is providing a unique opportunity for African women of the diaspora to come together with one voice.
I would say there's image abuse of our women as well. So there's all different types of abuses that our women are dealing with.
The hydroquine in it than this. Maybe that one is 50 pesos or 20 pesos. They prefer that one. And they always want to tone their skin. You see?
Do you understand what she's saying?
If you don't tone your skin, they'll say you are looking want to own, they will tell you you are, well, what is this? You look ugly. There's some pressure on us. And the education, we need to educate our youth ourselves.
Always, the package I always see is always to stay on the light woman.
To make us feel inferior and ignorant and we're not pretty.
SHEROES, that's my passion, working with the SHEROES. And so we met with
Hello?
Senkunsila. Yes. So here in the Gambia, I see as I go down the Senegambia Transit Way, the Carabab Avenue, all of these billboards that tell women with black skin that you are horrible, you are ugly, you are not clean, be healthy white. Lighten your beauty. All of these signs. Well, the women's breakout session at our conference was how are we going to partner with Sekun Silla to develop soaps, to develop commercials, to develop advertisements that tell black women in Gambia that you are beautiful, that you are a shero, that you have super lashes.
Now, what can be done and what is needed to end and prevent violence against women and girls especially?
Yes, well, you know, what we advocate for is that we have our own institutions that focus on the health and wellness of our women, which means that, you know, we need to train our own sisters, train our own women to deal with our own issues.
My problem was that I couldn't find product for the black skin. So I started orientation about what's possible for our skin, but also which product can you use if you have a sensitive skin.
We cannot stress enough the importance of always including women, girls, and young male adults, the future generation, on an equal basis. To leave them behind would be as to leave our hearts and souls, our fellow selves behind as well.
So we know that this flag is drenched with our blood. So what the young people are saying now, give us a chance.
We will sleep peacefully when we leave this world, because we know we have left a custodians of the struggle for women in your hands.
They're providing scholarships for girls in Liberia and the Democratic Republic of Congo. They're doing leadership training for girls in Afghanistan. They're building school bathrooms.
I think the program we have here today is very empowering, very informative, and it was a great program. Liberia is supposed to be one place for native Africans like us and our brothers and sisters from across the ocean.
50% of the cabinet now is women, are women, and now Asami Wong is the president. What does this mean for a country like Ethiopia that's been largely called a marginalized country in terms of women and girls' rights?
Because she started in a classroom, I think just as a woman in that position, we need to look beyond policy development and look at what it does to the psyche of the women. Women in large part who have suffered from the glass ceiling.
I value the Shero sisterhood because in good times and bad times, we stand for each other and we stand for the truth, empowering women, girls, children, and communities at large.
Those ones are the remote areas. We are talking about empowering ourselves, empowering women, the girl child. We are most at risk. They have no voice.
We have embraced without limit the idea of the Shero sisterhood because we have the shared value of sisterhood.
I am a Shero.
I am a Shero.
I am a Shero.
I'm a Shero, and I will see you at CSW 63.
Eyelashes have superpowers. And when women come together, any agenda we set can be accomplished.
All right, thank you, family. So we just introduced everyone to the Global Africa
Yeah, I just
Sheroes
wanted y'all
Union
to know that I'm stocking
Sisterhood.
up.
Brother, we hear you. And so if you could please. So we just introduced everyone. Oh. Greetings, greetings, family. So, thank you and welcome to Global African Women's Day. We have a beautiful performance now coming up by our dear Shiro that's located in Houston, Texas. And then after that, you will meet Miss Brittany Turner.
Well, children, where there is so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. Twinks, the Negroes of the South, and the women of the North all talking about rights. The white man's gonna be in a fix pretty soon. But what's all this talking about? You see that man in the back there? He says that women are supposed to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and given the best of every place. I ain't never been helped into no carriage or lifted over any ditch, and I ain't had the best of any place. And ain't I one? Look at me. Look at my eyes. I have plowed and planted and gathered into bonds, and no man could heal me, and ain't I one? I work and eat as much as any man when I can get it, and I bear the lashes as well. I've borne 13 children and seen most all of them sold off into slavery. And when I cried my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me, and ain't I a woman? Then they talk about this thing in the head, intellect. Well, what's that got to do with women's rights? You ought to tell me if I have a pint and you have a quart, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little pints measure? And then that man in the black there, he says that women do not have as many rights as men because Christ was not a woman. Network. Well, where did your Christ come from? Where did your Christ come from? God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with that. Right. Now, if the first woman God ever created was able to take this world and turn it upside down all alone, then all of these women together should be able to set it back and get it right side up again, and they's asking to do it. And you's men better let them. Now, obliged on you for hearing on me. Old Sojourner ain't got no more to say. Cool.
All right, family. We want to introduce our first Shiro who's going to be coming. All right, family. That was featuring Miss Brittany Turner, our Shiro from Houston. We want to bring her to the family to Okay. So we're live on Skype right now. This is your moderator and facilitator, Miss Angela Sells. We're seeing Brother Daryl's face on our live stream, and we really want to be seeing Sister Brittany. If everyone else who's not speaking could possibly go on mute, that would be fantastic. Brother Daryl, I think you're not on mute as well, so we're kind of hearing some of that. But Brittany, we need you to come forth and just give the welcome for the Global African Sheroes Day. If you start speaking, maybe you will pop up to the front of the screen. Sister Britt, can you hear me, Brittany? Sister Britt, can you hear me?
Hi.
Yep, we got you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you. Come on through.
Okay, thank you so much. Once again, my name is Brittany Turner. I am the Sheroes Union host of Houston, Texas, here in the United States. And this year we are celebrating the first year of the Global African Women's Day, founded in 2019 by Dr. Beryl Bookman and Iman Drume.
Sister Britt.
Not about coronavirus cancellation to take our day of celebration. And so Global African Sheroes have decided to bring the Global African Women's Day to the forefront via the virtual world. We are celebrating, and all of our community can join us via YouTube Live and Black Financial Unity, Facebook Live, and we also this morning we are live streaming with the TBC News of Nigeria, and we are celebrating and connecting women of the African diaspora, and we'll be celebrating all day. So we'll have many intellectual discussions about the plight of African women. We'll also be talking about poverty, irrigation or eradication, and inclusivity and freedom from abuse. So those are some of the things that we'll be discussing. And I'm very pleased to be in the space with these men and women from all throughout the African diaspora. I'm excited to see where the conversations lead and the ascension that people will rise to.
Thank you, Britt. Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear.
Okay, so we're seeing Brother Daryl on the live stream and we're seeing Brother Daryl's computer on the live stream. For some reason, your image dropped off while you were speaking, and so I'm new to this family, and I can't even put myself on here so you can see me. So I'm not really that familiar with Skype, unfortunately, but this is the platform that we're using to do our panel discussion. And so I just want to thank you for that. We're going to go to another video. This video is produced out of South Africa. And, okay. So now I see the two sisters up on the screen. Brittany, who was speaking, and Ferdozi, who will speak after we play this video entitled Memory is a Weapon. And family, I just want to ask everyone to please stay on mute while we play the video so that we are not capturing your background noise. All right, here we go. And please remind share the link to your friends and family to come on to Financial Unity on YouTube, and we're also streaming on Facebook Live at Black Financial Unity. Here we go.
This morning, Heritage Day, 24th September 2019, I attended a very powerful performance at the Apartheid Museum called Memory is a Weapon, directed by Firdows Bulbulia. A combination of music and spoken word, this performance theatre piece draws on the memoirs of female activists and resistance movements in South Africa to uncover forgotten narratives of strength, inspired by Winnie Madikizela Mandela's legacy. This exceptional performance has shown internationally, including at the Edinburgh Festival, as well as other venues in the UK.
Synonymous with powerful, muscular, meaty, brawny, hefty, burly, robust.
Winnie Mandela was incarcerated for 491 days by the apartheid government and was then banished to a house in Bruntfort. Performing this in the Apartheid Museum on Heritage Day is particularly apt. Winnie Madikizela Mandela was no stranger to controversy, but as history has uncovered much of the truth, she was specifically targeted by the previous regime, who successfully tarnished her reputation. Known as the Mother of the Nation, she passed away in April 2018. This is a powerful piece, and its performances are rare. If you get the opportunity to attend one, do not hesitate.
All right, family. Thank you. That was wonderful. So, coming to us live from South Africa, we have our dear sister Fidozi. I'm trying to. Here we go. Fidozi Bulbia. You can come off mute, Fidozi, and we would like for you to tell us all about your project, Memory as a Weapon, and why you felt it was important to share your work with us here on Global African Women's Day.
Hi, good afternoon and good evening. I'm in South Africa, so it's already almost 9 p.m. Thank you so much for allowing us to show the very short insert on Memory is a Weapon. We thought it's very important that we begin to talk about memory, because memory really reminds us of activism. And in the context of South Africa, we were using Mama Winnie Mandela as a conduit and a catalyst for the discussion around activism, particularly after her death, when women realized that the apartheid government had such a clear way of trying to, in many ways, get rid of her and her memory, and also give us a story about the person whom they had decided was not going to be the representative of the South African struggle. So in many ways, as we talk about gender-based violence and we talk about women's stories being isolated, or women, in fact, being written out of history, this is kind of what could have happened to Mama Winnie Mandela. But we had tried very hard to ensure that her memory and the work that she had done in terms of her activism and ensuring that South Africa became a democracy, that legacy will not die, and that we will be part of ensuring that story continues. For me personally, as a young student activist, I was detained at high school, so I did go to prison. And Mama Winnie's voice and her teachings were always uppermost in my mind. So it was always very important for me, whenever I considered where I sat and what my concerns were, that I had her story and the story of other women, the women of South Africa, the mothers, the sisters, the daughters of the struggle, have very strong voices and have been very active. So, how do we ensure that these voices and these stories are not lost? And using Mama Winnie as the main story, I also weave in the stories of other women. I think what was interesting for us in this particular presentation was that we used her book, 491 Days, which talks about the period that she was incarcerated while she was in prison. And in the book, she basically documented her everyday struggle, right from the kind of food that they were allowed to eat, or the size of her cell, or the interaction with the officials, and also when she became quite ill, her period in the hospital, and the kinds of medication that they gave her. But very much through that process, they tried to confuse her. They tried to give her medication that would really, not assist her, but really confuse her. And she was having to think very carefully about the kinds of tablets and pills and medicine that she was taking and what that meant in terms of her own survival and also in terms of her recovery. At the time when she was detained, she had her two children who were very young at the time, who were ripped from her. They basically left the two children in the middle of the night alone in the Soweto home, and they dragged her to the prison, to the cells. It was also a very painful period because it was the time that both Nelson Mandela, who was incarcerated on Robben Island, and so there were no adults at the house when she was taken, and her two children were left behind. It was a very, very difficult period for her, and she says was probably the time that she began to realize that her body was not doing that well, that was really the beginning of her illness. Yet, as we know, she continued and lived until she was over 80 years old. She had celebrated a wonderful 80th birthday, and thereafter her health deteriorated. But I think for me, what is important as an activist is to tell the story of all the women. So, in the global African Sheroes perspective, I think it's all the women that we need to consider when we tell the story, so that our children, and particularly our girl children, will be reminded of the strength of the women, whether we come from Africa, Asia, Latin America, Europe, and especially within the US, because I think our struggles are so common, and that our struggles as Black women are important, and that we need to be the voices for each other. So I would like to have been, obviously, we all would like to have been together. And the intention was to work with local people in the US, particularly with Kim and other women as part of the Sheroes, so that we could have done a similar presentation of performance and art and music and poetry using the text from the book of Winnie Mandela, and then sharing those voices from our friends like Kim and others. And I think that that would have been an extremely powerful opportunity for us to share our stories. I think also within the CSW, the issues that we raise around poverty alleviation, gender-based violence, about financial freedom, which is very important and topical, that these are part of the stories that we can weave into a performance. And always through performance, through poetry, through art, through music, we are able to tell a bigger story, because people don't feel like you are lecturing to them. They really feel that they're being entertained. And so we talk about edutainment. And in this way, we are sharing each other's stories in a very open and interactive way. So I thank you so very much for giving us this opportunity. And I thank you all as a team. We've worked extremely hard to get here today, notwithstanding the technical problems. It is a huge celebration for us to be able to talk. And I thank you for your leadership, Angela and Kim.
Thank you for
Thank you.
Dozy. Yes, thank you so much. Amandla.
Amandla.
Yes, yes. So we family, you heard it here. Wait a minute. Unmute. All right, family, you heard it here. Amandla, we want to say thank you to our dear sister Dozy, coming to us straight out of South Africa, a brilliant filmmaker and advocate. Right from the beginning, she was on board with us. for our steering committee as we put together the information for the CSW 64. And so please bear with us as we, figure out our technology and the way that we're streaming. We're using Skype and it's a little bit challenging, but we're going to move on now. So, for Dozy, I understand that we had one of Mother Winnie's granddaughters to join us. Is she still able to join us for the call at this time?
Let me just check with her. I know that she was coming in and out and the technology was a little difficult. I'll just find out, and as soon as she can jump in, I'm sure you'd be able to see her online. So I'm going to just connect with her.
Okay, wonderful. In the meantime, I need to have a nice little screen to be able to share, because the way this Skype is set up, it is, it's not giving us a great visual. So while we wait to see if we can bring our dear sister in, we're going to capture and take a look at another piece of work here. Let me cue it up. Okay. And I would like to talk to you just a little bit about the Global African SHEROES Union. And I want to thank Sister Brittany for bringing us that fabulous introduction today. And, just explaining why we do this work and why we advocate. There is a history behind the work that we are doing, and more importantly, a strategy for the future. And so that's what we'll continuously be discussing today. Behind the work that we are doing, and more importantly, a strategy for the future. And so that's what we'll continuously be discussing today. Okay, Empress, I think you've joined us for the call. I need you to go on mute, please, because we're on live and we're picking up all of your background. But thank you for joining us, and we will be coming to you shortly as we get ready to start our panel discussion. Okay, so I wanted to be able for us to have a view for everyone speaking on the panel. We're gonna get started with our panel, and hopefully we can bring in everybody that will be participating on the panel as we discuss the Ain't I a Woman, and looking at the progress that we've made 100 years after the 100 years after the suffrage movement, and what that means to Black women, not just here in the U.S., but also around the globe. So thank you. I want to say a shout out to our Facebook family for joining us. I'm, over here struggling a little bit with the aesthetics of what's going on the screen. Hopefully the audio is okay. It would be great for us to have some nice visuals to be able to project, because we have so many tens of thousands of photos of the work that we've done. But I'm trying to moderate as well as manage the technology, which is a little challenging. And so I want to go ahead and bring in our panel as we begin to just open up the dialogue around the progress of women 100 years after suffrage here in the U.S. Okay, let me see. I'm having a hard time getting this open. All right, so I'm trying to see who's all on the panel. We have 23 people on our panel, 8 joining us now. And let me welcome a woman who is phenomenal and has, worked very tirelessly in the movement for the struggle on behalf of our women and girls of African descent. And I would like to ask her to say a few words. So I bring to you the founder and convener of the original and official Million Woman March that took place in '97. Dr. Filet, Sister Empress Chi, Dr. Filet Chianisu, who's joining us. So, Empress, if you unmute your mic, please, if you would just say something to the people. We welcome you here on this Global African Women's Day. Of course, we know that in October we celebrate the National African Women's Solidarity and Appreciation Day, which we would love for you to tell us more about that on this platform. But also, we are talking today about the progress that women of African descent have made over the past 100 years. So welcome to the platform. Can you hear me?
Yep. Greetings. How's everyone today?
Yes, everyone's good. I've instructed them if they're not speaking to stay on mute because we're live streaming and it picks up everything. So we're going to just let you have the floor.
Okay, great. Well, greetings again to everyone. And thank you for inviting me for this dialogue for today. We're sitting here because we're evaluating some things that's going on here in Philadelphia and, of course, throughout the country. But we just got word just a little while ago that the governor of Pennsylvania has just ordered all essential businesses to be closed. So non-essential businesses, that is, to be closed. So there's a lot going on all over the country. So it's a wonderful thing that we're able to utilize this technology today. Sister Angela, I don't know if you realize we're getting some changes in our visuals. So hopefully you can still hear me.
I can hear you, yes. I'm trying to bring up some new visuals because, we don't have any. We don't have what I want to be projecting.
No problem.
Yep, just continue speaking. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So, as Sister Angela mentioned, of course, the historic Million Woman March is like none other. And interestingly enough, it kind of set the format for what you're seeing today. But in fact, MWM, again, Million Woman March, occurred October 25th, 1997. And the wonderful thing and very interesting thing is that it did something that had never been done before, particularly for women of African descent, and it did cross the board, meaning it was from the grassroots, as we call, through the glass ceiling. So no matter what stage or state of being one was in, economically, education-wise, spiritually, it was able to bring together all of our women and girls, again, from really all over the country, particularly at that time from the U.S., but of course from all over the country. We had women that came from Germany, Black women, that is, African women that came from Germany, a whole delegation who, of course, many of them were the children of Black men who were in the war and had children with the German women at that time. Well, that delegation literally came to the Million Woman March, also from Japan, needless to say, from Africa, from the diaspora. So we did something that was never done before, bringing together in one location 2.5 million. And so over these past 23 years, it has been grueling to develop the first global movement for women and girls of African descent, but we are pleased and honored to say that we have successfully done so and have done it not only in the spirit of our ancestors, but have done it in a way that is absolutely self-determined. And in this day and age, that is not only difficult, it's almost impossible. And we're seeing the reality of that, because most things that you see today that are done, particularly by women, but by our people in general, is funded by either the government or some other entities or some corporations. MWM has never been involved in that. We have never applied nor subscribed to government grants or corporate sponsoring or any of those types of things. So to do what we have done over the years is not only astounding, It is a clear demonstration and a real form of commitment to making certain that we're able to move forward in a way that represents not only what some call the Nguza Saba, which is known as the seven principles, but to show the tenacity and the kind of diligency of Black women, of African women, unapologetically, meaning we didn't ask for permission. We didn't ask to be linked in with anyone else. And even though we connect with all women worldwide, we are very distinct, particularly in the US, because we're the only peoples in this land that can say for 400 years we have been subjected to the type of brutality, the type of cruelty, the type of human rights violations. Again, being kidnapped and brought here. We're the only one that has that type of status, nor that type of capability to fight back.
Watch your condition for changes. Do not use tampon, push, or have sex if your doctor tells you not to.
Okay, can I ask that you go on mute if you're not speaking? We're getting some background noise. Please, if you could go on mute if you're not speaking. Okay. Empress, sorry about that. I'm not sure where that noise is coming from and if I can even. Okay, it's gone now.
I think you did.
Okay, go ahead. Sure. So, thank you for. Okay, go ahead. Continue.
Go ahead, Sister Angela.
Well, I wanted to ask you, there's a lot of, history, just one behind the movement that you founded, but also, just with Black women in the United States and around the world, period, and we know that we, Black women, at some point have got caught up in the white women's struggle. And we're still dealing with the residual effects of that. And we've also seen, I'm going to call the remix of that on several occasions. Of course, we have the women's liberation movement. And of course, when we were doing our work for the 20-year anniversary of MWM, we got, the Women's March. And then now, we also have International Women's Day, which is why we find it very important that we put aside days to celebrate, African women of African descent. Just throughout the course of time, and since suffrage, do you feel that, our women have made progress? Have we made sufficient progress? And, what do we, I would like for you to chime in on that.
I mean, that's some loaded stuff right there. And I'm going to be as transparent as possible. And it's this, we have made progress, obviously, because life makes progress. So you have to deal with, what are you gauging it to? What are you using as, the comparative analysis? So there's always things going on, meaning, technology advances, everything advances regardless. But the question, Sister Angela, is have we as Black women advanced comparatively speaking or amply? The answer is no. First of all, there is a serious issue with always mixing in other things, other issues, other agendas. And so Black women have not, unfortunately, developed to the degree that I had hoped we would 20 years ago. And I'm still in shock to find that we were not ready then and are not ready now. But that don't mean we're not going to be ready. So, there's a pro and a con there. But again, we, as Black women, we have been programmed to always want to nurture everyone. And we do. And it's okay. Because as the mother of civilization, it goes with the territory. But it has now become at a fault that we always want to do things for everyone else or about everyone else's issues and not really understand the significance in definitely not only taking care of ourselves, but taking care of our own. So we focus on the world's issues, we focus on all these other things, and we have done that for at least 400 years. But more specifically in the past 100 years. And to some degree we had to, because under this thing that we often call attempted global white supremacy, you had to get in where you could fit in. Wherever your voice could be heard, you had to prescribe to it or align yourself with it. So again, in the women's suffrage movement piece, of course, white women were able to make certain moves that black women definitely could not make. And so you had to link in with whatever you could to get your voice heard. Well, I hate to say it, but that was 100 years ago plus. And we are still acting like that today, that we've got to link in with other people in order to get our voices heard. And it's unfortunate, but we are allowing that to happen. In this day and age, clearly with technology and other capabilities, we kind of do have some idea as to who we are, where we come from. We do have an understanding of from whence certain things come, particularly violence and abuse. We understand very clearly that the crack cocaine epidemic had an impact particularly on black women, which of course had an impact on specifically our children. And that again, we see the connection to what we call genocide, but in a very sophisticated manner for the 21st century. So again, while other people are talking about reproductive rights and they want to be able to have whatever lover they want to have and all of that, that's wonderful. But what does that have to do with 400 years of atrocities? What does that have to do with our men in particularly being targeted for 400 years, mass incarceration, and other kinds of things, just in general on a day-to-day basis? What does that have to do with the fact that it's our children that are subjected to the crib to the prison pipeline? So again, while we need to always be cognizant of the world and how other things are happening and be involved in that, but not forsaking what is going on with us. And that is what is happening. And that's why I'm very adamant now about making certain that black women know what time it is and say, if you're not doing something in your community that is relevant to our women and girls and our people as a whole, turn in your black card.
Okay. I don't know if the people out there were able to hear my question. I had my microphone on mute. Um, yes. So my question is about the relationships between us as global African women. Women around the world. How do you foresee, the way that we interact and our relationships being fruitful and productive? Um, working together, because we have a lot of tribalism, we have a lot of reasons to be separated. What is your opinion about us as a women in the diaspora, coming together to solution some of our issues, because we know all, issues are the global issues are also local, and local, are global. Can you just speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. And thank you, Sister Angela, for bringing that point in, because one of the significant and very, very powerful things about the Million Women March and its universal movements, and now what we call a Million Black Women Rising, is that it was always designed to connect us throughout the diaspora. But you have to start somewhere. And so we've learned over the years in talking with our sisters and talking with our elders globally that there has been an indication that many have been really waiting for the children that are in North America, the African descended children, because there is a dynamic there, and it can cross all the way around, meaning many of us don't know where we actually came from in terms of Africa, in terms of the diaspora. Now, that has, again, its pros and cons. But what we do know is that many of us are mixed. And I don't mean mixed just racially. I'm talking about mixed in terms of the regions that we come from. Therefore, we don't have to submit or commit to any one specific region, area, tribe, clan, or whatever, because we, in fact, embody pretty much the whole thing or a large portion of it. That makes us very unique. So, again, that enables us to come to the table and say, look, we're the ones that were sold. We're the children that were sold, that were kidnapped. And so our voice is this. We need to be able to put aside some of these various differences. And we're here today after 400 years. Obviously, there's a reason that we're able to still be able to survive what we have been subjected to like none other. So what we're saying is the call for unity, the call for solidarity, is a must. We have demonstrated that it is ancestrally divine that we do this. So we are capable, meaning those sisters in particularly in the U.S., but all over the diaspora that understand the concepts of Pan-Africanism. And again, concepts. Understand the concepts of other teachings that are fundamental throughout Africa, that are traditional throughout Africa. So this is how we're going to connect, again, by knowing thyself. And very simply, what that also means is who and what is the mother of civilization? All peoples have come from one something. We dare say that one something is us, the original people. Therefore, that gives us the capability to come together just based on that fundamental premise. And until further notice, that can be backed up by archaeologists, by biologists, by whomever, meaning the first civilization has been Africa. The first oldest remains is Africa. So I'm just not saying this because I think it's cute or because I'm trying to impress someone. I'm saying it because historically and from all of the findings, the first peoples were found, remains were found in Africa. So with that said, this gives us the capability as women to embrace our originality, our nationalness, our naturalness. And with that, then build and grow from there. Many of us are talking about some of the same situations. And by the way, Sister Angela, you mentioned pandemic that's attacking or affecting all of us nationwide. But again, we need to be intelligent enough to also understand that biological warfare is real. If you looked at 1950s, and even earlier than then, but particularly 1940s and 50s, you'll see where there have been tests, particularly in the US, but also Germany and in other countries, that dealt with certain types of warfare, that dealt with certain types of mind control. So what we're seeing and hearing today, okay, yeah, it's called Kenora or whatever, but the point being, we know for a fact that there are certain things that have been manipulated and put into circulation by way of governments and by way of corporations and so forth, primarily to make money, but also to manipulate. So as Black women, as African women, it behooves us to, again, be intelligent, pay close attention, but now act accordingly as one. And we can do so as the mother of civilization.
Yes, I am. So I was hoping that Miss Mabatu would be joining us. And I'm trying to see whether she's connected onto Skype. Ms. Mandela had to leave the discussion because she's assisting people in Swaziland to get some masks for the coronavirus. So I think I mentioned whether she's connected onto Skype. Ms. Mandela had to leave the discussion because she's assisting people in Swaziland to get some masks for the coronavirus. So I think I mentioned whether she's connected on Skype. Ms. Mandela had the discussion because people in Swaziland to get some masks. I'm also getting feedback. I'm not sure why. Is it still on? I'm also getting.
Oh, forgive me. I just ended the call. Let me log back on to the call. Okay. Are you hearing me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Okay. So you said that Mrs. Mandela was on, but then she left because she's going to assist. I just ended the call. Let me log back on to the call. Okay. Oh, I know. Hearing me? I can hear you now. Okay. All right. Wonderful. Okay. So you said that Mrs. Mandela was on, but then she left because she's going to assist. Okay, something is not cascading properly because I'm speaking real time and then I'm also hearing myself play back. So I don't know whose phone I'm actually playing back on, but I need everyone to go on mute if you're not speaking because it's throwing me off a little bit. Not cascading properly because I'm speaking. All right, Ferdozi, would you like to go ahead and just chime in on the conversation? Whose phone I'm actually playing back on, but I need everyone to go on mute if you're not speaking because it's throwing me off a little bit.
I am. I'm getting the feedback. Yes, I think it's fine now. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Mabatu, are you there?
Hi,
Perfect.
I'm here.
Wonderful. Please introduce yourself.
Greetings. Uh, Hi.
Go ahead.
I wanted just to hear first because I didn't participate just to follow the thought in terms of what sisters are saying, then I will make an input.
Okay. Mabatu, we are just talking generally about the role of women and particularly, I think, the support of global women. And I would like, if you can, introduce yourself and the work that you are doing at the presidency as the advisor to the minister, and also
Okay.
probably the preparations around CSW, which we know had to be cancelled because of coronavirus. But we're talking
Yeah.
about how we as African women can hold hands and support each other and talk about the connections that we make that are important. I think you can definitely talk about that.
Okay. As Firoz is saying, I am the advisor to the minister in the presidency responsible for women, youth, and persons with disabilities. And one of our role is to coordinate international agenda on gender, the gender agenda for South Africa. So we had prepared to participate at CSW 64 with different sectors around the country. Unfortunately, due to the coronavirus, that was suspended. However, that does not stop us, because I also serve on the Generation Equality Forum, because our president has been requested to champion the coalition, action coalition on gender-based violence and the gender justice, economic gender justice. So what we are planning is to ensure that we prepare as a country programs that are going to ensure that we reach 50-50 by 2030, as outlined in the SDG 5, but also our own national development plan that says by 2030 we should have closed the inequality between the rich and the poor, women of in their diversity. So we have engaged different stakeholders, young people, women with disability, women in film, women in business, to look at what are their challenges now, but also to celebrate progress, because there has been progress, even though the challenges are still surmountable. Now, we were planning for the Mexico in the May meeting and Paris July meetings, but today we got an email from the Generation Equality Forum that both of those meetings, there is a possibility that they're going to be postponed until we deal with this coronavirus. And I think for me, what women can do globally, especially women from Africa who are dealing with uh, poverty driven issues, where if coronavirus is based on you prevent because you need to wash, you need water, the gender impact on that for women is huge. And I think we would need each and every sister in the continent to be able to support women from the villages who might not have access to water like women in towns. Women in the villages who survive by going to the market to sell, and this virus says you must quarantine. So those are the issues that we need to engage on, to say how do we support women in their diversity who might be impacted differently by this global virus, that will also determine that their livelihood might stop in the process.
That's fantastic.
I am hearing
Yes.
you.
One of the things we're concerned about as global African women, since we are facing a pandemic, it would seem that something this drastic, I guess, would serve as a unifier for, women of African descent or African women around the globe. And, part of the crux of our discussion is, 100 years since suffrage, which is the time that women, including black women, had the opportunity to vote here in the United States. We were just examining, where we are now versus where we were then 100 years ago. So in your opinion, do you feel that African women have made adequate progress over this past century?
Is that me answering?
Yes, please.
Okay. I think for me, with the 25 years in our democracy, I think African women have made strides. If you look at 100 years ago, where African women were in terms of not having a voice to vote, where they would not access education, where they're not supposed to go and work, in our situation where women were minors to their children. I mean, all those have been taken care of by legislation. Now, in my country now, women can vote, women hold positions of power. We've got 50-50 in cabinet, we've got women in business. So, with looking at the numbers, there has been dramatic change. But in terms of women being free to live free in their own homes and communities, that is another debate, because we see gender-based violence growing up, and this is a global phenomenon. There's a serious pushback for patriarchy to continue reinventing itself and holding on to power. And the only way they can hold on to power is to ensure that they use violence and force to push back women into those spaces that they've created before. However, even though patriarchy is also fighting, but there is a lot of pushback. We're seeing it in Mexico just days ago, where women shut down Mexico in terms of fighting for that space. So women are globally now coming together and reclaiming the spaces that they've lost. And because of social media, I think that in itself is even creating this global movement where it starts in one place, but globally we see women all over the globe supporting an issue that is happening in a specific country. And before, you will be isolated to deal with those issues alone in your own space. So there is movement, there is change, but there's more that used to be to happen.
All right. Thank you. For Dozy, do you have anything that you want to chime in on that particular question? And what we're going to move to in just the second half, and I want to bring the question back around to Empress Chi, our the convener of the Million Woman March, and also to you two ladies. I want to talk about how do we move forward and what we need to do. But for Dozy, would you like to just talk about, even with the work of Mother Winnie Mandela, and of course we thank you for putting together art forms to help preserve her legacy. And the sister mentioned that in the individual, our individual communal spaces in the villages, women are still dealing with a lot of violence. How far do you think that African women have come over the past 100 years or less?
I think I would agree with the challenges that we have, and yes, we need to celebrate. And many African countries, I think Rwanda is a prime example, as well, of the number of women who are in cabinet and the women who are in positions of power. But I think globally we've been looking at the stats, and so women on boards, women who need to be having a voice, that is still part of the challenge. The huge challenge for us in Africa are the rural communities and women who are in semi-urban areas. Particularly, we talk about township areas, or we talk about mainly so-called shack communities. Right now, the concern for many South Africans is with coronavirus. We are talking about people not being in too close proximity, or ensuring that they can wash their hands, that people generally have hygiene. These are huge challenges for us on the continent, when we know that people do not live in decent housing, and we don't have decent shelter, and we do not have hygiene. People do not have running water. People do not have proper ablution or toilets. So those challenges are stuck, and they are our reality. Right now, we talk about closing schools when many parents do not have childcare. So who will be taking care of those children whilst parents have to be working? We're also concerned about people who will, if it's no work, no pay. What's going to happen to many of these families, where if they do not work, they will not be paid? If their children are not at school, who takes care of the children? There could be an increase in gender based violence. We also know that at least during school time, children are protected up to a point. There is some form of discipline. In many schools, they are being fed, so there is some kind of feeding scheme that takes place. So these are challenges that are rife. And so I think what maybe even what the gains might have been prior, the challenges we live with are HIV and AIDS, TB in our communities, so it's all these kinds of opportunistic diseases. Then we have this coronavirus that, nobody expected or anticipated would affect us as it is globally. For us in South Africa, we've got now 61 cases. We don't know how quickly those numbers will move up, particularly when we have people who have to take informal transport, and we have a local taxi system where people have to commute, in numbers, in a taxi, in a small kind of bus. So that kind of exchange, that movement of so many people at one time is a grave concern. And I think that we, as storytellers, as filmmakers, as artists, have to find a way in which we can communicate in the most succinct and clear way so that we do not scare people, because there's a lot of panic. There's disinformation, there's misinformation, there's fake news. So, how do we start to tell a story that is clear, that gets all of our people to understand what the messages are? And how do we lend a hand? Because I think that's really what it takes. As we hold hands here tonight, I'm really so excited. I think I have goosebumps to think that given what is happening, given the context, we are able to talk to each other. And I want to thank my sister Mabatu, who came on at the last second to share with us what we are doing in South Africa, and the wealth of knowledge and experience that she has gained over the last few months, which gives us an impression of the kind of work that they are doing at a very senior level to ensure that women globally, women on the continent of Africa, women generally find each other and support each other.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for, sharing your wisdom. We're going to wrap up this, panel, this session with one more question. Sometimes tragedy, brings us together, and it helps us really go inward to reflect on what's actually important and where we're putting our energies and what we're building to leave our legacies. And of course, we do this work internationally with the UN and the effort to realize gender equity, but as well as, eradication of poverty. And even though, we're here in the US, and I'll let Dr. Fillet speak to this a little bit more, and you all are in South Africa, and of course, we have women from a host of other countries included on the call. We're dealing with the same type of issues that you are, in terms of women and children being in poverty. Um, if they've closed down restaurants and bars, and people have made a serious run on the grocery stores and the big box chains. Things are emptying out, but a lot of women here actually get assistance from the government. And if that was to run out, or they can't go to work, and like you said, the same situation, put their children in childcare, which they've closed all the universities and the schools already. This is going to create, a serious situation. And as in South Africa, the level of violence may increase, but we're still, fighting against poverty and fighting to eliminate abuse against our women and girls, as well as trying to be included in the wealth of the nations, just as global African women. So I want to ask Empress Chi to chime in on what are our real next steps. What do we need to do, as global African women? What can we do practically, just as women and mothers, and what can we do, also collectively, um, as African women, throughout the world and the continent and the diaspora. Are you with me? Still with me, Empress?
Yes, greetings. Thank you, Sister Angela. Again, this is a wonderful, wonderful dialogue. And, It is a blessing again, as was indicated, to be able to do this on an international level. But again, I have to say this to our women, that we must not be fooled. And what I mean by that is, of course, there is progress. And again, I mean, that's just the reality in life. There's going to be progress. But the fact of the matter is, and you can see it all over the world, particularly when it comes to women of African descent, we are allowed to do certain things, and certainly more than what it used to be, obviously, but everything is more than what it used to be. So the point is, again, when our dear mother, Winnie Mandela, who we will be celebrating very soon, I believe her transition date for April. But at any rate, we remember very clearly that when she was under attack, and that the Million Woman March helped to bring that situation to the international scope with making certain that 2 million plus women could surround her with love. Now, I'm saying that because we do not have anything in place on a national or international level that literally helps to protect and defend our women and girls. And again, most of the smaller groups that exist all over the country and they're all over the world, and there are thousands of them, they would not exist if they were not getting support from either the government or a corporation. So my point is, we are not looking realistically at how we are going to be independent so that we can really support one another, but also be able to take care of our children, our families, our communities. There's little emphasis being placed on how are we going to be able to move forward. What are the mechanisms? MWM 20 years ago demonstrated something again that had never been done before and did it independently. So we have a model in our midst. So what we are now proposing for 2020 and for the next 5 years, because we have something called the Black Print 2020 to 25. So while many talk about a blueprint, we have a black print. And what it does, it not only examines history, because again, if we do not understand and embrace history, to be able to move forward, it's going to be a lot more complicated. So yes, for example, we can now vote here in the U.S. and in other locations. Apartheid is not as prevalent as it was, and certain other things. But here's the reality. Have you ever noticed when you see the advancement of an African woman in any country, do you ever see what really happens if they advance too far? Or if they're trying to do something independently? Hence, did we just not see the removal of an incredible Black woman, African woman, from one of our very well-known diplomatic circles? The point is being, where are the Black women, where are the African women that can step up and say, excuse me, but we're not having that? So here's the point. We have to develop more than just organizations, more than just societies or NGOs or whatever. We have to develop political parties that are both national and international, African Global Women's Federations, which is what MWM now has. And as a matter of fact, as a point of direct action, we are planning to bring the Million Woman March Universal Movements into our various countries. As a matter of fact, we're scheduled to be in Trinidad Tobago next year for one of our first summits to begin to see how we can collaborate on a national, international level to get the job done. So yes, while we're talking about advancements, but from whose lens? From out of what context? And I dare say, if we do take the time to really examine, we're in the 21st century. Is it really, comparatively, is those advancements really what we would call advancements? So again, we have to look at this thing holistically. And we have to look at the things that we know must get accomplished. And again, not necessarily regurgitate what the media tells us. We have to set up mechanisms of information and application of being able to make certain that we are able to provide the proper assessments of things. For example, we're looking at a pandemic, obviously. But again, we can tell you that this was predicted at least 10 years ago. So we didn't know the exact when, we didn't know the exact how, but I can guarantee you some knew that this was going to happen or something like this was going to happen. We saw the indicators. But because they keep us isolated and because they keep us locked into their concepts and to their understanding of various things, we just latch onto that and leave it as it is. We can no longer do that as women of African descent, and I dare say we will not. So, again, beginning this year, we are going to say to the African Union, for example, that we would like to have reports starting in October for our 23-year anniversary. We're requesting the African Union provides us with some reports. The reports are going to be in regards to these past 10 years. 10 years as it pertains to the AU's observance of the Decade for African Women. So here we have 10 years that have passed. Surely there has to be some reports. So this year, for the 23-year anniversary of MWM, we have put together a venue and a capability to hear the reports by nation, by country, so that we can see what has been developed as a result of 10 years of the Decade for African Women. And with us, we're prepared to now also issue, as the first global movement for women and girls of African descent, something that we call the International Decade for African Women, but it's called the Nexus, so that we can examine this past 10 years as well as prepare for the next 10 years with a timetable, with a collective agenda, so that we can say that within 2 years we plan to do this, in 5 years we plan to do that. We have to come together to organize that type of operation. And again, starting in October, well, hopefully, depending on how this outbreak or this epidemic precedes us, we will in October begin to establish those types of forums, those types of interactions, whereas collectively we can now determine. For example, if we have sisters that are in Kenya or sisters that are in Liberia and they're making baskets, we need to be able, as women of African descent, to say, okay, rather than have other women do trade for us, we need to be doing that ourselves as a global African women's sisterhood, as a global African women's market. So that if Sister Angela has various jewelry or some other commodity that she has available through her network of women, of Black women, of African women, I have someone this end. We need to bring that together collectively and create a global market. We can do that. So again, with our Nexus plan, that is the plan. So again, we're stressing to everyone, inviting everyone, that we have to deal with what we call hashtag just us. Hashtag just us. It is time for us to not only come together, because we've had these dialogues for quite a while, but what are the plans of action? And so that's where we're at now to deal with implementation. So again, starting in October, we will be looking at reports from the various countries as it pertains to the Decade of African Women, which will now be closing this year. And we want to examine what is our plan as women of African descent as it pertains to the International Decade for African People. What is our agenda as women? This is what our plan of action is, what we're proposing. And we invite all of our sisters that are interested to join us, to be a part of this development of this movement, and as such, enable us to now be able within the next 10 years to really to be able to be extremely productive. Because if we don't, I dare say it's going to be something much worse than what we're seeing today.
All right, thank you. So one of you said a lot. One of the next steps that I think for the sisters on the call that we, can all work towards or rally behind is really, getting reports from the various countries on, what has been done for our women. I don't know what the mechanics of that looks like, but I think that's one of the takeaways. So we're going to have to move to our next segment, but I would like to give Miss Imabato opportunity to just respond on what she feels are the next steps, and then for Dozy, you can close us out for this particular session. So is Miss Mbato still with us? If so, you can unmute. I'm not sure. Let me see. Oh, you are, but you're on mute. Mrs. Ramagoshi, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond. Okay, for Dozy, while we may be waiting for her to respond, if you would like to just chime in on what you feel are next steps, or just any solutions that we can, take forward from this panel from this day.
Thank you, Angela. I think that a lot has been said, and it's very exciting because there's both in terms of way forward and also, what some of the challenges might be. I agree with Empress that we should get together. We need to find an opportunity where we do have a face-to-face, but this has been a great opportunity to make connections and to hear what is happening on the ground in various parts of the world. So not just on our continent of Africa or what is in the US, but generally I think where global African women are, that we find each other and that we share with each other. I do want to thank you, Kim and Angela, for keeping us on the straight path, this very straight and narrow path, and not giving up, notwithstanding what our challenges have been, whether it was technical or otherwise. So going forward, I would like to say that in my space as a storyteller, filmmaker, media person, that the communication has to be clear. We need to streamline it, and we need to, from the community of women and men that we have surrounded around this particular process, that we find a way to have CVs or just short some kind of communication that's written about each of the people who are here, and that we put that out onto the website and onto the Facebook, so that we can have one question that we ask everybody and they answer that question, and that way we can begin to create, I'm sure, a whole dialogue. But we would also have suggestions from many other people besides just those of us who have had the platform in order to speak.
All right. Thank you so much. So I am aware, oops, I'm muted. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I'm aware that in certain countries it's already pretty late, and so I want to be mindful of that. So we're going to go ahead and show our Women in Midlife Crisis film trailer next, and then we're going to give the opportunity, we're going to give the opportunity for Zippy to speak. So please, while the trailer is playing, if everyone will go on mute, because the live stream will pick up any background noise or movements if your mic is on. All right, thank you.
I don't think I'm ever going to have a baby.
And whose car is that in the driveway? Kamze fulani, Kasponyo.
Brayo, maplaya tupo. Akina Deno ndio matapeli namba moja.
I want to get pregnant today, now.
The doctor is ready to see you. Please follow me.
How do you maintain such a body?
Juice detox. Me imagine it has worked for me. 4 kg. 1 month.
Unajua mpango ya kando ya bwana yako. I'm lying down with my legs up.
Hey, it took you long enough. I definitely need that kind of action.
Men like to marry young. Na kwanza wakifika hii age yetu, wanataka mwanamke ambaye amezaa na yuko na mtoto.
He might just decide to marry you and you'll live happily ever after.
Colette.
Maria, she's not talking to me anymore. Who told teenagers that the world owes them anything?
My daughter is pregnant and I don't know what to do.
Once women hit the age of 40, it becomes increasingly difficult to conceive.
We pick any man mwenye unapenda hapo. Alafu baada ya miezi 9. Hapo.
Everything I have is by me and me alone.
Hiyo child support unapata gives you a cushion to land on. Appreciate. And mind your own business.
This one is a magnet for abusers. Sianza kuniambia hapa mambo ya mwanaume kunijenga.
I'm going to be named head of operations in Africa. But I'm going to create time for all of them.
Hello.
To actual living. Cheers.
Wow. Okay. That was fun after such a serious conversation that we were having, and so that's wonderful. I want to introduce the filmmaker of that particular film, Women in Midlife Crisis. And before I break, wait a minute. I got something going that I don't want going. Okay, I thought I put that on pause.
I'm now being joined.
No. Okay. Forgive me. I'm just trying to get the technology together. Yes. I wanted to.
Angela.
Yes, we're live. And so, hi, Marceline. Greetings. Welcome. If you could go on mute, we'll introduce you shortly. But we're live streaming and we're right in the middle of our program. So, go on mute. We'll bring you on at the appropriate time shortly. Okay? Thank you. The whole world is seeing you. So that was a segue from us speaking about, 100 years of suffrage and what progress have we made, what progress have we not made, and then what shall we do about it. And so I just want to, give a thanks to our guests, Ferdozi from South Africa, as well as Mmabato, who also called in, who is the Minister of Women's Affairs there, and also Dr. Felicia Nusu, also known affectionately to us as Empress Chi, who is the founder and convener of the Million Woman March and its universal movements. And so now we're going to move on to our dear Zippy. And we're going to just talk about using art, how global African women can use art to transform the landscape and to transform what is, going on in our worlds, how art can be used for social transformation. So we want to have Zippy join us, and also we have Miss Hilda joining us, one of the film writers from Uganda. So Zippy, I would like to give you the floor. Please introduce yourself to the family, and afterwards we also have Kim Poole join us and talk about the SHEROES sisterhood. So Zippy, are you with us? Come off mute, and if everybody else could go on mute, we'll give you an opportunity to speak.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
Hello?
wonderful. Yes, we hear you. I don't see you pop up on my screen, but I hear you. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Oh, okay. I am a filmmaker in Kenya, and I also teach film at Kenyatta University. But I'm also a performing artist. That's my main core. The Midlife Crisis film was shot last year, and with the intention of putting the women's voice on the platform, because a lot of times women are not given, are not well featured, are not well portrayed in the films. When you find women featured, it's because they are either a wife or they are a girlfriend. Even when you watch the very, very best of movies, they're always given minor roles. If they're lead, they're not portrayed as professionals. They're portrayed as a just wife or girlfriend or something sexy. So we wanted to make a deliberate attempt at portraying the African woman in what we are today. And also the other challenge that we faced in the past is when the African woman is being portrayed, they are portrayed as they are poor and that's why they are suffering. So we wanted a different story. We want to change the African narrative that yes, African women are nowadays working, African women are nowadays going to the office, African women are changing the narrative. They are having big jobs, driving big cars, living in the city. And so that's what our story revolved around, trying to change the African narrative. So midlife crisis is about four ladies. One is a spinster who's struggling to have a child and she's already 40s and doesn't have a boyfriend, a common problem that we really have nowadays when people hit 40s. Then we have got Colette, who's a divorcee mother of two girls. One is already an adolescent, and so she feels like perhaps the man should have taken the kids so that she can start dating again. Then we have Alice. Alice is a housewife married to a rich man. And so for Alice, she feels like she needs to find herself to go back to work, but the husband does not want her to go to work. So she spends her time in church, in doing charity work. But then her struggle is that the society has got expectations of her. The society wants her to be this upright woman and all. Then she realizes her daughter is pregnant. And that's why she's like, my daughter is pregnant. I don't know what to do. The church, the society, my friends, what do people think? Then we have got Rena. Rena is a typical city woman who's struggling to make life balance, struggling between work, raising children, and a supportive husband. When we thought about these four characters being friends, we were like, this is the typical four friends that you would find in any ideal modern setup. You'd find a divorcee, you'd find a spinster, you'd find a happily married woman and a happily married woman. And so we wanted to bring them together as friends, as looking at their different challenges, not from a poverty perspective, but from the perspective that women face emotional challenges, women face social pressures, women face psychological challenges in parenting, in marriage, even in their friendships. And that's what our story is about. That time when you hit 40, when you think that everybody in the society thinks that you have had it, you have made it, but then you look at the woman, she's like, okay, I have everything, but is this really what I wanted? Did I want to have kids at this time? Did I want to be a successful career woman at this time? So the film kind of like questions all that, but in the end, we look at the power of friendship among these girls. You know, when you wish you were the other person, the other person really wishes it was you. So um, we're trying to look at women in the arts, women in film, and in Kenya, you find a lot of producers are women, but a lot of directors and in the technical teams are men. So when you look at the women producers, they're very successful in their forte, but you ask yourself, why aren't women directors? Why aren't women in the technical areas like cinematography and all that? And just the other day, on the 4th of March, we had the Women in Film Awards Kenya, and that was the very first of its kind. And we were trying to look at how many women do we have in this industry, because a lot of times we only hear men's name. And one thing that came to mind is that as women, we don't speak enough about what we do. We don't speak enough about the things that we are passionate about. We don't speak enough about the works that we have done. We brush every small thing and every big thing that we have done as, that was just some job, that was just some job. So it's time women, we also started speaking more about what we do so that the world can be able to recognize our works, the world can be able to understand the works that we are doing. For midlife crisis, we also made an intentional move to have more women, even in the crew. We have got 70% of cast and crew are women. The editor is a woman because we felt having a female editor would be able to help understand in the dialogues, because women dialogue when it is like now in our film where there are four women, it's very delicate. If you find somebody who does not understand the women's dialogue and how it always takes place, they might be able to just remove too much of what is important. So, like in our film, we had a female editor, we had sound, location sound was a woman, post sound was a woman, production manager, actually, almost the whole team was a woman. Except now the technical aspect again, our cinematographer was a man. Um, so when you look at that, it's about trying to bring in the women into understanding the technical aspects of the film. How can we have more women be able to be involved in the technical aspect? How can we be able to empower more women to understand that in the arts they don't have to be the second in command, that in the arts they don't have to be the ones who are not getting the money, because when you are not first in command, it means you are also not first in receiving the profits. And so
Mm.
that's something we are trying to to struggle with. But we are hoping that things will change, things will grow, and yeah, this is also very prevalent, not just in the film sector, but also in the theater sector. A lot of producers are women, but quite just a number of directors are women. Most of the directors are men. Uh, so there's the part of women are not pushing enough, but there's also the part that the reason they're not pushing enough is because of the social pressures. As a woman, you have a child you have to run back home to, so you cannot dedicate all the time that you need to rehearse. When a man can rehearse up to 9 p.m., a woman can only rehearse up to 6 p.m. and rush home to take care of the children. And these are social expectations and pressures that women have to deal with. And it is, we can't say that it's something that's a disadvantageous, because anyway, parenting is also a very beautiful thing that we can deny. But trying to balance all these in the modern world has been a little bit hard for most of us. And also security, when we look at security for the woman, when we come from shoots at midnight, uh, the man will be dropped at the gate and he will easily enter the compound. A woman will also be dropped at the same gate. But what are the risks of a woman being maybe raped or being stolen from just right outside the gate before she walks in? So the risks involved for the woman, which makes a lot of us not want to dare too much, is because of those social risks. Uh, when you are working on the set, everything is kind of like created for the man.
Mm.
From the way the camera is shaped, it is kind of like created for the man, how it's supposed to be held, the weights and all the grips. It's kind of like created for the man. And so for a woman to be, we have to be twice more. And it takes quite a number of women to take the courage and to take the step to be that. So
Thank you,
all these
Zippy.
challenges coming up, it's something that has been there. But right now, when I look at the arts in Kenya, I believe women have really stepped up. We are taking the challenge, and we are trying to prove that yes, we can. We have done it before. We have got quite a number of producers in the Kenyan film industry. We have got like Betty Katungu, Foret Films. We have got Api Matere. We have got Njoki Mohoho. We have got quite a number of them who are doing tremendous, beautiful jobs. But now we need to have more of them stepping up as directors, because a lot of the films are produced by women, but very few are directed by the women. So we need the women to take a bigger step into the artistic side of directing.
Okay, let me jump in for a minute, Zippy. Thank you, because you've given us a lot of information to digest and to be able to process. And I want to get the other women on the panel also in. But let me first just commend you on, the work that you're doing and the courage that is taking you to get into the industry. But it sounds like actually women are doing a lot. It almost sounds that in Kenya, women may be just as or more progressive as here in the United States in terms of having all of those roles. And getting in those particular careers and being artists, that's one or two lanes. But then having ownership is where we have to focus the level up, because a lot of our creativity and our artistry it hits different spaces and places and mainstream, but are we adequately or equitably, compensated for that? So I want to bring Auntie Hilda, who we call affectionately, into the dialogue as also an artist, and she is calling in from Uganda. And we would like to give her an opportunity just to speak on using her art for as a tool for social transformation. So, Hilda, are you on the line with us? If so, you can unmute your mic and come into the dialogue. Uh oh, what happened? Okay, I'm not sure what's happening. I was sharing my screen. Okay, it looks like I'm still on, but I don't see Hilda anymore. Okay, Kim Poole, are you on the line with us? I know that you are also a soul fusion teaching artist out of Baltimore, and we have a video that we want to play. Okay, we're getting a little feedback, but would you like to chime in on the conversation around, global African women using their art to transform our society?
Yes, first I just want to say happy Global African Women's Day. The first time in history that it's been celebrated. The acronym is GAWD. Oh my God. Black woman is God. I love that acronym. I just can't believe it rolls off your tongue that way. I said, yes. I love acronyms. I love catchphrases. I love mantras. I'm so catchy and cheesy that way. But perhaps that's the artist in me. I do want to weigh in. First, I want to thank Dr. Zippy for being on the call and representing women, not just in Kenya and East Africa, but all over the world. Women directors in the film industry are really taking center stage. You have Ava DuVernay here in the U.S., Dr. Zippy over there in East Africa and Nollywood, women stepping up. So we are really taking over our narrative. And it's so important at this time in history when we're combating so many abuses in the media. Black women are constantly under attack when it comes to the media. I've seen so many women in the video industry, the music industry. I'm a vocalist, I sing, and in the video industry, I mean, the video vixen, we've been dealing with that caricature for so many years, half naked women. And, trust me, I don't have any problem with my exhibitionists. If you're a woman out there and you want the bikini on and every video that you do, then fine. But don't be the 10 or $100 a day hoe in the rap music video. If it's gonna be a video where you're naked, honey, at least get paid for it. My God, some of these women aren't even really being compensated. And so, as we change the narrative of African women around the world in the media and all art forms, what we realize is that it'll only happen when we tell our own story. And so, thank you so much, Zippy, for doing that. So, I tell our story through music, and I'm really excited about art for social transformation, the concept that we should not only use our art as an aesthetic because it is beautiful in and of itself, but art should be a tool for community development on purpose. That we understand how art mimics life and life mimics art, but I want women in arts to be very conscious and very purposeful when they not only realize that as an artist they create art, but with that comes a responsibility to choose an area of societal development and focus on its development with your art form. I'm happy to say that as a part of today's celebration, I know that there are many sheroes out there listening in, whether it be through YouTube Live or Facebook Live or through WhatsApp, or maybe through this very Skype call, listening and celebrating Global African Women's Day with us because of what we've done with the Shero Sisterhood. It all began with a song called Super Lashes. It was mostly a joke. You may know about the fashion industry and the makeup industry's ability to tell us how to wear our hair, how to style our highlighters and bronzer. And at one point in the US, wearing lashes, falsies, some people call them, was the latest I mean, it was the biggest craze. Your outfit wasn't complete without a set of falsies. It's kind of waned off a little bit, but during that era, 2014, I wrote a song called Super Lashes, and it was literally about the lashes that we wear on our eyes. And I got real creative with it, started creating lashes and, doing the faces and makeup of women. But you know what happened backstage with the women that came to my shows, with the ones that did my makeup? I started to realize that we were creating a sisterhood organically, women from across sector, across class, and even across language barriers, because lipstick and the color that you wear, it doesn't require you to really speak about it. You just point, and red, yes, works with your skin tone. Blue, what? Helping to highlight your cheekbones. Yeah, so backstage, us getting dressed together and preparing for the show, and me watching the women in the audience mouth along to the Super Lashes song, I realized that it was bigger than just a song, that this could be a tool to help galvanize women all around the world. Well, of course, I'm the only sister in the Shero sisterhood that will ever say hashtag Super Lashes at this point. But women in Ghana, in Gambia, in Liberia, in Guadeloupe, in the Netherlands, my God, keep going, Uganda. We have women in Gabon. We have women in South Africa. We have women in Jamaica, in the US, from Texas to Cleveland to Baltimore. They're now willing to say, yes, I'm a Shero. Yes, I'm a part of the Global African Sheroes Union. And hashtag global African women work together. And this is the reason that I encourage artists, whatever your medium is, to focus on purpose, on social transformation, because art can get you into places that policy can't. Art can take you to decision making tables where money can't buy you into the front door. People tell me the story about Oprah. One day she was in Europe and there was a really fancy department store. She wanted to come in and, maybe get a few outfits for her premiere. She had a show to do in that area. And there was a small white frame, a white woman frame, small frame, just a cashier. And she literally looked out of the window, this being a really fancy, really expensive department store. And she told Oprah Winfrey, a billionaire, that she wasn't allowed in the store. And in the aftermath of that situation, when she asked Oprah, or when Oprah's team asked her as a cashier, why didn't you let Oprah inside the store to shop? And of course, blank face, nothing, no response. But we, Black women, we all know it was because she couldn't buy her way into that store, because with her Black skin, that's all that woman could see. Oprah, without her makeup, without her television show, without her own television network, she was just another Black woman. And at that moment and that time, she didn't believe that she had the ability to shop in that store, because she didn't believe she had enough money to afford what they were selling in that venue. And so, of course, the apologies, they profusely come from her mouth. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't believe that I let you stand outside. And if I had known that it was Oprah. But the truth is what's the difference between Oprah and any one of us global African women? And so that connects us. That certain things, commonalities, heritage, right? When I say heritage, I'm talking about hair, right? Right. The one that grows out of your head. Certain things connect us. And this is how we need to begin to connect our advocacy, poverty eradication, inclusivity, having us at those decision making tables like the one we just missed at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. But what we decided is that this freedom of abuse that we're pursuing, this poverty eradication that we're pursuing, that we won't allow coronavirus or the cancellation of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women to stop our effort. And so that's why we're on this call today. And art did that. art brought us to this table. That's how it started. So I want to empower women in the arts to come to tables beyond the ones that are just talking about the art itself. I want to see women at the board of estimates. I want to see women at economic forums that are about business. I want to see women at the spiritual table when it comes to religion and how our people are going to spiritually connect. I want to see women dealing with healthcare. Where is the woman that's going to be an artist that helps us heal from the inside out using art therapy? I want to see women help us be more creative as people. The moment that we decide to create anything, that's art. And so I want to empower the art in each woman and give you permission to allow that artistic light to shine. Because the reason we're here on Global African Women's Day having this virtual forum is because of art. Art did that for us. So if you're a woman out there and you're pursuing your art form, don't forget the social transformation part because it's just as important and it's your responsibility too.
Angela, please share your screen because we don't see something, we can't hear something. We just see you. Yeah, yeah, we see you. Even in the first video, we only see you. We don't see the video. We don't hear the music. So no, even this. Okay, okay.
All right, that was Sister Kim Poole out of Baltimore, our soul fusion artist, who is also the founder of the SHEROES Sisterhood that helped to birth this work that we're doing now. It was brought to my attention that the family that's joining us on the panel live was unable to actually see the video. So what I need you all to do is to go onto your Facebook Live. Go to at Black Financial Unity. That is where we're streaming from. We're streaming this program live in two places, three actually. Financial Unity, which you want to go to at Black Financial Unity on Facebook, and you'll be able to see all of the coverage live. Or you can also go on YouTube on the Financial Unity YouTube channel, and we're also streaming live there as well as the Skype. So some of the back office view is a little different, and that's why you're not able to see it. So please bear with us. So thank you, Zippy and Sister Kim. I don't know if Miss Hilda is still with us in terms of us talking about art for social transformation, but I want to thank you two ladies. And ask Zippy if you had any closing, comments that you wanted to make around women using their art for social transformation before we move on to Miss Odilia. Odilia, she is next. It looks like my screen is frozen, but Zippy, I would like you to give the people an opportunity how they can find your work. If they want to support your work, where they can find you, please. Let me give you the opportunity to share that now. Okay, I think I might be having a technical issue because I'm getting a phone call. Can you all hear me on the Skype? 1 minute, Kim. I need to go mute. Okay. Are you still able to hear me? Audio. Yes. Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up. And watching the video online at Facebook. Great. Okay, wonderful. So I have messages coming in from different places. And we're going to take a break. Okay, so we'll take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to do the He for She Forum and panel. And this is where our brothers are going to come and talk about why it's important for them to support us as global African women. And dealing with some of the issues and challenges, but most importantly, what can we do moving forward? So we're going to break the live and we'll restart it so that what we've done so far we'll be able to capture and save it, and then we'll restart the live. So we'll come back in about, what time is it now? It's 4:29. 2 minutes. We're just going to take a quick break. Let's just say 2 to 3 minutes, and we'll be right back on. All right. Thank you.